Hi guys, Hearthguard here, and I'm going to be starting a new Let's Play series today. This will be a conventional Let's Play, unlike the Vandal series that I've also got going on my channel. The Vandal series is what I'd call a narrative Let's Play. I've taken a lot of time to cut together the footage and do some after-the-fact narration to make it more like a story. This will just be more like a normal Let's Play with commentary. You'll be watching me go through the campaign without trying to create any kind of extra story or do much additional editing. Just something that I can sort of unwind, do a little bit easier than the Vandal series. For those who don't know, if you're doing a narrative type or narrative style Let's Play, it's generally going to take many extra hours of work before it's actually ready to be released, and those are very rewarding, but at the same time they take a ton of time, and also I have a job and so forth, so this is just something that I can do that's a little bit quicker. So anyway, let's get started with this. For this series, I'm also going to try a little bit more traditional faction rather than one of the migrators like the Vandals. I'm going to be playing with the Franks, or one of the two barbarian kingdoms that were released with the initial Total War Attila game, and the other one being the Saxons. So these guys are a little bit like the Saxons, but I think they tend more toward the Germanic type troops rather than the Saxons have the Nordic type troops. And of the two, having played with both now, through the Geats and the Saxons on the Nordic side, and the Ostrogoths and the Vandals on the Germanic side, I think that the Germanic troops are much better. So looking at these guys, the faction description, they are led by Pharamond, that's their king. They have a religion of Germanic paganism, which is not bad. The story goes like this: as the world stands on the edge of chaos, the Franks hover between two roles. As destroyers or inheritors, they're on the cusp of realizing their full potential. A confederation of Germanic tribes from the Lower Rhine region, they were defeated and eventually allowed to settle at Toxandria as federati, where I don't know where Toxandria is. While the current Frankish leader Pharamond's rule is a fine example for future rulers, a bolder warlord could lead them to greatness against the failing empire. If a lasting Frankish kingdom is to emerge from Rome's ashes, the people must be unified, the Franks must be one. So, sounds like they're calling out Pharamond here a little bit, saying that he's a decent but not great ruler, and so maybe somebody else is going to have to step up to the challenge of making the Franks a great kingdom or empire. So the cultural trait for the Franks they share with the Saxons is this new kingdoms. This means they get a building conversion rate of minus 50%. So in other words, I think this means that the conversion, say from a Roman type town, I think it's called civitas or something like that, to the barbarian version like a burg or a torp, will happen about twice as fast. With that said, it's still incredibly expensive to do from a monetary standpoint. And I know that from reading like websites like Hanga.net, there's apparently a large built-in penalty for all of the barbarian tribes converting the Roman buildings. And that's why when you try to convert a building, you'll see sometimes it's like 10,000 to do it, or higher even sometimes. And so that's no different for the Saxons or the Franks. They don't get a bonus to that, unfortunately. I came to notice this when the Celts DLC came out, and it showed that actually they were getting much lower rates because I don't think they had that penalty built in. I think that was probably a bug or an oversight. I don't know if it's been fixed or changed now, but regardless, everybody else has it basically except the Romans. So they share that with the Saxons, this increased conversion rate. And then they also have a faction-specific trait of ferocious warriors. They get a reduction of 50% in integrity penalty for casualties suffered. So after the battle, if they've taken a lot of, casualties, then their integrity is not going to be quite as bad as, another faction that didn't have this benefit. Their other one is kind of interesting. They get a melee damage bonus of 10% for every 25% of a unit that's lost in casualties. So I guess as the unit becomes damaged, even though they have fewer men fighting. The men who are there are fighting harder, and they're inflicting more damage. So, in other words, if you lost half your unit fighting, then they would have a 20% bonus to damage. So that's fairly significant, particularly for maybe some of these higher damage units with like armor piercing and axes and so forth. So we'll see. Maybe that could turn the tide in a close battle. Might be useful. We start in the Flevum settlement, which is a minor settlement in this larger province of Frisia. We're right next door to the Saxons here, and the Angles up here. All of the Nordic tribes, the Jutes, the Danes, and the Geats are here, so that's a potential threat. Got lots of Germanic tribes down here, east of the Rhine. This is all Roman-held Gaul over here, Roman-held Britain, and then you've got the Celtic tribes up here north of Hadrian's Wall. So that's kind of our starting setup. They list this as a hard initial challenge for the start location, not for the total gameplay, just kind of how hard of a start is it. I don't know how accurate these really are. I think one of the hardest starts I've had playing this was the Ostrogoths, which are listed as like a normal start or something, and it may just have been because I wasn't as used to playing this game, but nevertheless, I mean, it was really tough starting out with the Ostrogoths. Whereas with the Vandals, I think they're not. I double check, but I don't think they're listed as normal. They might even be hard. The Vandals are very hard, so I had not a tough time with the Vandals. And then the Ostrogoths, who are listed as normal, had a terrible time. So again, I don't know how accurate that is, but we'll see. I'm going to set the difficulty at hard. Thought about ramping it up to very hard, but kind of like to keep the higher difficulties for my own playthroughs where, I'm not recording or anything like that. So if something goes horribly awry, I haven't wasted, an hour of recording time or whatever. Hard is still hard in this game. It's legitimately hard. So we'll just stick with hard for now. I do have at least one legendary campaign going right now, but not for the cameras. All right, so with that said, let's get started with the campaign. And we'll be greeted with the usual loading screen, which should be a little bit faster for my computer. I've got this on an SSD. But there's still some time to fill with commentary. And then as soon as this loading screen gets done, we're going to have a short cinematic, and I'll be quiet during the cinematic and the intro narrative.
The air was filled with smoke and blood. Rome was weak. The tribes grew in strength and number. Their roots went deep, and they felt the earth's blood pounding through the land. But their borders were threatened, for a great storm raged in the east. One by one, the tribes scattered as seeds in the wind. And behold, a red horse, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. The blood of their kin would be avenged. Great hunters, they tempered their blades in Roman blood. and saw their once mighty walls reduced to dust. They made ready for war.